Oh yeah, that's basically it. You get the point. I mean, I hope you got the point. If not, there's no hope. That's the new duck sauce. Thought y'all should see it. Our next guest, or our guest today, is been making house records for the last decade, at least big house records. They scored a number 3 UK hit in 2014 with the remix of Bump and Grind, the remix Disclosure, Totally Enormous Extinct Dinosaurs, Duke Dumont, have their own label, Street Tracks. Very pleased to welcome Waze from Waze and Odyssey. Hello, sir. Are you there?
I'm here.
Oh, I think you're muted.
It should be working.
You're good now.
Is that good?
Yes. Hello. Let me just recalibrate. Yeah, the studio. Yeah, we're well calibrated there. Where in the world are you right now?
In the UK, and I suppose much like the rest of the world, still going through everything that we're going through at the moment, unfortunately. So limited, not been to the States as much, which kind of miss
Right.
a little bit, but yeah, we're good. We're healthy, sane, and I suppose we're just all learning to deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like you're holed up there with some nice bits of toys there. For those, because the crop is only square on your face, but I can see that's a 101. Is that a real 808?
It talk about, I mean, yeah. So got the 909, the 808, the SH101, then 303, the Roland Boutique SEO2, which is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
With such a small bit of kit, it's fantastic. The Moog Mother, it took about 14 hours the other week to set up and get it kind of working. And there's still a bit of latency, but I think that's just a problem that you get with
Sure.
that sort of setup, you know. So, but finally got Patch Bay,
Yeah.
and have kind of finessed the studio a little bit. So that feels cool.
Nice. Are you thinking about doing some live PA situations or some jams?
It would be cool, but I think I'd probably use newer kit. If
Mhm.
I'm being honest, I think you'd have. I mean, I think I mean, obviously, right now it's it's a different world. But traditionally, I think if you were to do a live performance, you'd want to have something that's quite easy to tour because the costs kind of soon build up.
Yep.
Like really, and to make it, I think there's something kind of cool about having your own little kit that's in a flight case that you go set up. And I've seen people do that. I remember. I went with Totally Enormous Extinct Dinosaurs in like 2009, 2010. We went to Iceland for a festival, and he literally just set up his own kit and just performed this stage of like 1,000 people.
What was he sort of running there?
Oh, just all I mean, laptop, but he had just little consoles and controllers and all sorts. But it
Right.
was, I mean, it was a live show, and it definitely got the kind of response of being a live show. But it was just cool that he toured it himself, whereas I think lots of people try and tour a live show and it ends up being really expensive and it puts them off doing it. I think
Yeah.
you kind of need to maybe slowly get yourself into it. And it's like when you first start DJing, especially when I did, it's you take your decks somewhere and you set them up and you know how to wire them in.
Mhm.
You know, it's kind of if you can create something like that yourself. But yeah, the kit, it's been good to get to grips with. There's only so many hours in the day. So my friend Tom Kane, who I used to share a studio with, he helped me set it up. He's the kind of the tech guy for Gorgon City, who we met on a tour bus in the States
Mhm.
in 2015. And yeah, we spent 14 hours together just wiring it all up and just making sure it all talked to each other, and the MIDI was kind of speaking to it works now, which is fun. You kind of just want to get on and make music, I think.
That part is definitely the, I guess, intimidating or the speed bump for a lot of us. I mean, I feel you. Like, I just want to play. I've got a couple of things, and it's just the switching. If you don't have a patch bay, it can be quite deflating.
Yeah, no, exactly. Exactly, and it's I've been through that stage of plugging in, plugging out, and it's just to have it plugged in. Not only does it kind of reduce the wear and tear on the machines,
Hmm.
it's just a lot easier, and it's here, and you're like, cool, you know.
Right. I guess let's back it up for a second before we get all into the gear talk. You mentioned. I mean, I'm familiar with the beginning of the Waze and Odyssey project back in. I want to say it was around maybe 2012, 2013, when you were just. There was like "I Want You" was maybe the third or fourth record, but it was like that whole. You guys were putting out you started with a like hot out of the gate. What was the what were you doing before that? Were you already producing like under another project alias, or had you been DJing like, or was it your first time into the house sort of realm in a big way?
Yeah, it was definitely the most notable project. But prior to that, I started working in London. I worked at Radio One,
Okay.
which was a very formative experience, I suppose. But I'd always DJ'd. I mean, I
Sure.
suppose I caught my first break in my 20s, around 2002, and I got a residency to be a DJ.
Okay.
So I used to warm up on a Friday night for people like Nick Van Paul Wolford,
Mm-hmm.
Youssef, Milo. Those sorts of characters would pass through this little club in Sheffield called Pin Up Club, and that's where I got my first, I suppose, experience.
Okay.
Pleased to have gone through that, playing vinyl at the time and literally warming up.
Yeah.
You develop a thick skin doing that.
Yeah.
It's a great experience. I mean, it's I actually kind of later on I've kind of missed playing the warm up slots.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to be said for setting a mood, I think, and yeah, it's quite a skill. It's quite an art. So very much appreciate people that can do that. But yeah, that was the kind of first incarnation. And then I think when I moved to London, I started putting on events, and it was actually a bit more indie electronic in some ways. So I booked people like Totally Enormousistic Dinosaurs, Florence and the Machine,
Yeah.
Later the Pier, Phonex Solar, and they used to play this little East London bar club on a Thursday night for like £50,
Hmm.
and that was my first introduction, I suppose, into it. And then yeah, kind of, I think it was Jamie Jones really. I think in sort of 2010 that started getting you back into that house sound. I definitely was kind of infatuated with it when I was at like university in Sheffield, but dubstep kind of hit,
Right.
and it definitely went off the radar for a bit. Even
Right.
like, I think even back then, it was a different time with regards to consumption of media. Like Spotify maybe wasn't around.
Not really. Yeah.
It was a different time, so it was like radio was dominated by dubstep, drum and bass. It was like so the Scream exploded,
Yeah.
2007.
Subtract was everywhere.
Yeah, definitely, it was a different time, and Jamie Jones kind of started coming around on the underground a little bit more. And I think by then media was opening up a little bit, 2010, 2011, and I just loved the funk that he brought back to it. I think I kind of got a bit. When I first got to London, it was very minimal house,
Mm-hmm.
and some of it I just didn't really like. If I'm
Right.
being honest. Like it was just
There's just,
it was just
one
nothing.
sound. Yeah.
It was nothing. I likened it to like a drip that just changed occasionally, and like obviously there are some amazing tracks. You can't say that a whole genre is rubbish, but it just didn't do it for me from a clubbing perspective of
Right.
what I was used to of that kind of feel good house music.
You just need a different pill at the time. Didn't know it. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it was very linked to the culture. I
Yep.
think of that time and what was happening, in a deeper level in that period of time. But the feel good house that I suppose that I was brought up on, Masters at Work and all of that soulful sort of sounds, that really influenced a lot later. And you can see the value of something like Minimal, but I'd probably it's like the techno that comes from places like North America. is a bit more soul and funk and jazz infused rather than the industrial side of
Right.
like Germany, arguably. So
Right.
yeah,
So,
it's not that I didn't like it. It's just it, for the atmosphere when you go out, it just wasn't what I was used to.
oh, I mean, I think we're talking a little bit about these sort of little movements and micro movements within a territory, or within half of a decade. So I was living in London in 2007, in right by the Old Street stop. This was before it got all nice or nicer. It wasn't bad,
That was a good
and
time.
I would go.
That was a white heat moment in London's like existence. It was. I mean, you probably saw it at probably the house. I think that era from like 2005 to
Yeah.
2010 was, and just pre-Olympics. I think it was a really, the grit was there. There was lots of artists living there.
Yeah.
It was cheaper to live. Suddenly after the Olympics, it did go a lot more expensive. It just became a bit more internationally renowned, I think.
Then they put basically like a club in the station, and like like
Oh, it was Wild West days.
yeah. Well, so the last time I played at Village Underground, I guess 2 or 3 years ago, and I couldn't believe how different Olive Shoreditch was. But I mean, that's just gentrification, I guess. So when you got there and were hanging out, you said you were playing at this like spot in East London. I was curious if you were talking about like East London, or if that was like Hackney, Shoreditch, or like Zone 1.
Old Street. It was called Bar Music Hall at the time. I mean,
Right.
yeah, it was like almost like a Belgian beer hall. But
Right.
they gave me a budget to curate an event every Thursday. No,
Right.
I think it was monthly Thursdays. Yeah, and yeah, it was perfect. Really, I mean, it was a kind of the perfect ideal of being a promoter. I suppose you're not having to risk too much. It's a hard job being a promoter, I think.
Yeah, I can. I'm
Big
a
gamble.
little bit familiar with that. I'm curious to hear about what it was like at Radio 1. Like, what were you doing there, and what was that atmosphere? As someone that sounds like you were already a fan of the music, so that must have been an eye-opening experience from the get-go.
Yeah, like I think probably the best place I've ever worked. Really.
Oh, yeah?
Lovely people. Yeah, lovely people. Very humble, very down to earth. Very different to what I'd probably been used to previously in media. But I was a freelancer, so I got to cover when people are on holiday or ill,
Mm-hmm.
and I would fulfill the role of like an assistant producer. So lots of editing, lots of interviews, lots of maybe recording stuff, lots of project management, I suppose, like putting together a show. It's all very there's a lot of hard work that goes into those radio shows,
Of
across
course.
the board. Like, even yourself and your broadcast, any transmission will take a degree of planning. But it was great. I got to work across a breadth of different radio shows, from Pete Tong to Annie Mac to Nick Grimshaw to, I did weekend stuff, so a bit more kind of mainstream, Vernon Kane, Joe Wiley. And yeah, it was fun, and still to this day friends of lots of the friends and colleagues that I had at the time there.
I love hearing about background stories like that, because I feel that they probably give you, like you said, like a breadth of experience and knowledge that you can then pull upon in your whole journey as an artist. So, can you talk a bit about how initially that the Waze project started, and I guess a little bit later on, all the way through to running a label where you're like releasing like Groove Armada and such? It's a big question.
Yeah, so I was getting a bit of traction, I suppose, with the event I was doing in London at the time. So I started playing a bit more internationally, which was amazing. And me and Serge, I think we met at Snowbombing Festival in around 2007, I think, maybe 2008.
I've played that. Not to hard to interrupt. They brought it over finally to like the U.S., Canada, like a couple years ago.
Yeah, it came to Canada.
Yeah.
And yeah, great festival and a great meeting place for people.
Sure.
It's one of those very social sort of events.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we met we kind of met again through an ex-girlfriend of Serge's called Sophie Lloyd. Shout out to Sophie Lloyd. I went to India for about a month and ended up hanging out with Sophie. And then she said, you should meet up with Serge. You should work with Serge. And we had a coffee, and then we just started writing music. And like you say, at the beginning, it was just prolific. I mean, we lived probably 5 minutes down the road from each other. I had a Vespa scooter in London at the time. I lived in a place called Clapton in Hackney, which at the time was 2010. Was definitely a bit more off the beaten track.
Right.
But you found it was like a ripple effect in London. It was people started moving further
right
out until you're basically in Essex. So there's nowhere to go in London.
Right.
And it felt like it reached a saturation. But we were 5 minutes down the road from each other, Serge and Homerton, and I think it was a good time for the music. I think it was there was definitely a lot of timing in it. I think with what was happening, so like Jamie Jones bringing that house music sort of vibe back. Damien Lazarus had obviously been crafting it for ages. I mean, they were always still there in the background, but I think they started hitting more notoriety, which definitely captured people back and arguably brought the funk back into it. It was definitely a funkier sound, that early sort of Jamie Jones sounds, which I think really captured people because they were so used to listening to dubstep and drum and bass, which was pretty frenetic music or very kind of, from a dance floor point of view. Their sound definitely appealed to a lot more people, started writing a lot of music, literally locked ourselves away in a studio for 3 to 4 months, wrote loads of tunes, and I think we started getting our first bookings around 2012. Panorama Bar was our first European gig.
Nice.
Ever. Well, I mean, yeah, you look back and
you're like, okay.
Like, wow, I was so nonchalant about it at the time, but you look back and you think just fair play to Andy Baumack. He was a very early follower. Really remember him picking us up, super early. And yeah, what a journey it's been. It's been phenomenal.
And
it's funny to look back on. I mean, it's definitely when the touring hits, you write less music. I think that's the reality. That's the struggle. But it's been great. I mean, we've been so lucky coming to Canada, America, South America. It's been a total journey to experience that.
When did you launch the label?
Label launched in 2012.
I didn't
so
realize
initially, and I think everyone feels this way as well. And you notice a lot of artists do it more now, and it's kind of kept with it. I think, and it's been something, that you really have to work hard at and keep a consistency. And it's not easy. It's definitely not easy. But I think that you do it for freedom at the beginning. And then it becomes a platform that you can hopefully help to amplify what other people are doing and give them the opportunities. I think more recently, with regards to the label, it's probably pivoted and tried to release more artists that are unknown as such, and to give them their first platform. I think I've got a side alias called Ninth House, which I've released a load of music with people like Dusky and Shall Not Fade and Totally Enormous Extinct Dinosaurs, and Fitzpatrick, Jamie Jones. And when I first tried to get the music signed, somebody turned around to me. They'll go, unnamed, but they said the music's great, but you don't have a profile. And I thought, what a weird thing to say. So I kind of took it upon myself to try and accentuate young artists and developing artists that are coming through that don't have the platform and release their music. And I think we've had such a success story with people like Louis, people like Will Easton, with people like Reese Manning.
Yeah.
Louis released a track. It was his first debut track, and Hot Since 82 put it in a DJ chart on Beatport. And I remember I had Camel Fat Dave was texting me saying, please can I have this track.
Right.
Marco Farioni was like getting in touch. Andrea Olivia, just like people like need this track, it's amazing.
So if it's
And
strong enough, it just spoke for itself.
it was a great exercise in just kind of seeing what's what, I suppose, nowadays with regards to. I think you can have tracks that are like, oh, it's everywhere, but a good track always, shines. The cream always rises to the top, as they say.
Yeah.
I think.
So that's an interesting perspective. Like, we have all sorts of guests on the show, not just artists. Lately, we've had our first manager last week had a Atlantic A&R director, and we were talking about a similar thing where the different paths towards, and I suppose with like majors and pop, obviously like upstream to the bigs, that might be one story. But I think yeah, she was saying that, like, with one artist, they were familiar with her from working with Future Classic and like maybe even like Greco-Roman or something, and then so they had their eye on them, and it's like, so that's one side. But at the same time, she's like, I mean, there are also other artists that they work with that are basically fresh out of the gate, and if they see them live, they've seen them live, kind of like your classic A&R story where you see a show and you're like, oh, these guys have it, or maybe she's got something there, that quality and the music, obviously, which you lead with. So, but it is also something I didn't realize until later on in the game, was that sometimes these decisions get made by like a label, a remix. You might turn in a remix and it might not get released, not because of the strength of the remix, but perhaps because of profile as well. So it's, I don't know, I guess something that's, when you have your own label, you can sort of run your shop the way you like.
Take a bit of a risk, I suppose. And yeah, no, exactly. It's having a bit of freedom, I suppose. But you also need to build the value of the label unless you're like a, huge high profile artist, and you can just go, oh, I'm going to release my own record. And it's usually backed up by a major label, let's be honest, like someone like, Fisher, for example. It's like, it's a partnership with Ultra, so you kind of get it. They have the marketing capabilities to take that record further. But unless you're a huge artist, it's definitely, you have to solidify a little bit and kind of build trust. Like anything, people kind of want to know it's good. It's like a restaurant that you're going to eat out, and you're like, yeah, it's good. I know, I've been there a couple of times. Or with the label, it's like, yeah, they've had like 20 great releases, and you build up the faith.
Did you see the extensive Dua Lipa remix album?
Yes, I saw a lot of it. I think Bless Madonna.
Yeah, right. She changed it. Some real hitters on there, but it was interesting that I think they might have took a bit of criticism maybe from younger, like the TikTok crowd, for not having like EDM types or something, but I think it was a nice a risk worth taking.
Oh, it was a bit more headsy.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it was definitely a bit more. Yeah, I think Midland did one maybe.
Yep. I was playing that one.
Yeah, no, I saw it. I thought it was. Yeah, I mean, I heard, Mariah's taste is phenomenal, and it's very real. It's very kind of. It is. What's happening? It's maybe not the. It's not going to be the taste of an EDM band.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you start to realise there's so many little pockets that you maybe don't know as much as other people do, and I think TikTok, for example, is its kind of own thing. Really, let's be honest. It's very, as a medium, it's very short, and it's very 10 seconds, 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Nothing. So it's probably going to probably very much fit the sort of advert music culture where it's like loads happens in 10 seconds, whereas the best house records, nothing happens for like 3 minutes and then something happens.
Yeah,
I suppose a bit like Minimal, but a bit, I mean, that was the thing about Minimal. It was just like a succinct change and people went kind of nuts. You take a kick drum out and people would just go wild. But I suppose house music in some ways is very similar, because you can, if you're good at it, you can really keep a groove, I think, and keep something held.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys, with the records that you've made, can speak to that. Down, I always get the name wrong. Down with the, it was just like everywhere. Maybe for those in the chat that might not have heard it, I mean, I felt like I went to Miami that year and it was heard in every single set. And I think you guys made some.
I remember that year. Yeah, definitely. I think that was everywhere.
It was just, and it was one of those really. I'm gonna play a bit of it, just for those that may not. All right, chat. If you don't know this one. You had this incredible breakdown. I think this is why every DJ played it.
It was a breakdown. It was a slow down. The building.
Well, part of it was because you had that insane breakdown. Sorry, it was sort of side chaining you out there, but DJs were. I think it was one of those things where DJs could pretend that they were doing something, and obviously were just drinking another shot, and the crowd would just go wild. It's just so funny, like that break. I'm sure you've seen the reaction to it. It's also different when you guys play your own record and everyone knows. But if to see just like Joe Schmo dropping it, right, and this with this really interesting, not conventional. Maybe you know where it was. Just this whole section. Anyways, yeah, the change in tempo, the build, the stutter. Y'all get the idea. Yeah, let's go down memory lane. Do you remember how that came together when you were writing this record?
I mean, like a lot of it. I mean, we started off Fruity Loops at the very beginning of what we did.
Mm-hmm.
It was there was a kind of cut up plugin essentially, and he just chopped stuff up a bit like Stutter really.
Mm-hmm.
On Ableton, but I think we locked into something and gave a bit of a trademark, I suppose. It was the cut up vocals, it was the quite clunky rhythm in the kick.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was a skip, and there was a bit of a garage sort of vibe at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I think we were truest at the very beginning, like definitely being honest. Because I think the issue is that I think the music changed a lot. I mean, when we first started, the variety of artists that we played with and alongside was so broad, and then I definitely think that it became a lot more sort of tribal after that, and lots of different communities,
mm-hmm.
which I think changed it. But yeah, the kind of early days were I suppose treated with the most fondest of memories, I think.
There was a lot of tasteful M1 organ in the early records. I mean, love
it's quite
that
funny
shit.
Listening back though. It's so like the production is just we were just having fun.
Yeah.
I think it was just, and then that's probably one of the things is that you start thinking even more. I think there's something that's very very naive at the beginning of someone's career, that they don't care as much.
Well, you're making
And I
club
think
records, and you're sampling like these vocal chops, not just on this one, which is an extreme tempo change, which is really interesting, but on that stuff, it sounded like you were just hitting a sampler. You'd take the end of a vocal phrase and then hit it a couple times, quantized or not.
Totally just chopping up a whole vocal, really. I mean, very much based on MK.
Right.
I mean, yeah, shouts to Mark
God.
Kitchen, because I think we sampled obviously the Nightcrawler's bass line in the Bump and Grind remix, and yeah, you know, that was him. He wrote that,
Right.
and then gets no publishing from it. God bless him. He's done all right now, though. I think.
I think he's doing okay.
Yeah, I think he's doing all right.
The Forever 25 MK, at least whenever I see a photo or video of him.
He's kind of done his, you know, yeah, fair play to him. He invited us to play some gigs in San Diego and LA, I think about 2 years ago. And yeah, super fun. You know, he's done it. It's amazing to think that he didn't DJ prior to 2014, 2015, I think. It was actually Jamie Jones that kind of got him to do his first DJ gig.
I did not know that. So he was already 100 house records in, 200 probably.
But he never DJed.
That's
And
ridiculous.
then I think he used to DJ on like Tractor or whatever. And I think he just does CDJs now. But
right.
When he first started, I think it was Jamie Jones that was like, "Come and play for me in Ibiza," and then I think the rest is history.
Tractor should have just given him a blank check and said, "Continue to play Tractor and just name your price. Just play it in Ibiza." That's, you know.
Yeah.
Or maybe they did, but
Yeah.
maybe they weren't allowed. You can't play Tractor at Space. I mean, I don't care what anyone plays off of personally, but you know, certain aesthetics sometimes.
Each to their own. I think
yeah.
it's technology. I think, you know, yeah. I started with records and belt-driven decks, so
Yep.
that they're a world unto their own. But I mean, at the very beginning of Waze and Odyssey, we used to play a lot with records, and then as we started touring more, that changed, because you don't want to check your luggage, you don't want to lose your record. It becomes more difficult, and even the most hardened of vinyl aficionados that are touring intensively start to drop the records.
Yeah.
You know, and it's the brutal reality that you're fond of them, so you don't want to lose them. It's, you know, it's one thing losing a memory stick, it's another losing a crate full of records.
Yeah, I saw Greg Wilson play at Splash House very briefly. I think we basically had overlapping set times out in Palm. Have you guys played at Splash House in Palm Springs?
Yes, did it once. Yeah, amazing. That's why I learned what lime caviar is.
Say again?
Lime caviar.
Yeah.
So the little limes. I'd never seen it before, and I was like, "This is amazing." I think I had it with like tuna ceviche.
Oh my god.
And you're just like, "This is a phenomenon," because we don't get that in the UK.
Right. Yeah. The seafood and right. Yeah. Fantastic festival. But I saw Greg Wilson play his infamous tape decks or reel-to-reel machine there.
Oh my god, yeah.
That's really commitment, but I mean, he's a legend, so you can do that when you're 30, 40 years in the game, right?
Oh yeah, massively. That is a commitment. That is.
In that heat. He had a little canopy, they put him in or cabana, right? Because it's like 40 degrees. That was actually, I started on vinyl like you, used to lug all that stuff around. I'd have these 5-hour residency bar gigs. I'd walk in and just be like knocking people with the cases, you know, kneecapping someone, and then CDs, CDJs. And because of Splash House, it being so hot, I was on Serato at the time, and my computer was just dying before my very eyes. That was the last straw for me, and I went to USBs and haven't looked back since. So, you know, it's all about the environment.
It's good. It's part of the journey, I think. Sometimes it's you know, I did all the bar gigs, you know, back when I was even when I got to London, I was kind of still doing bits like that, and it's just, it gives you it gives you a resilience, I think.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Also knows when when you've got it good, you've got it good, rather
That's
than kind of like
yeah.
walking in it like, oh, I'm the fucking best, and it's sorry, I swore, apologies. But you walk in and you go, oh yeah, I'm the best. But when you get somewhere and you have to deal with something that's like the mix is not working or
Mm-hmm.
the deck's not working properly, you have to get through it. You have to challenge yourself and push yourself and get the job done. So when you rock up and it's like, here, have some like vodka. Here's a really nice DJ set to play with. You feel appreciative.
Yeah.
It's perspective, I think. It must be quite interesting just if you're an artist and you just break through and you're just suddenly like, boom, loads of gigs, loads of, it must be quite hard and you get lost a little bit.
Right. I think with the SoundCloud era, we started to see a lot of the relative, 6 months going from your basement never having played a show to all of a sudden you have like a headline US tour. And that's I don't necessarily wish that on anyone, because that'd be tough. That's like a really, really steep learning curve.
Yeah, exactly. Challenging. Yeah, you've got to be like a really strong, resilient character to even not let that affect you in the slightest. Really, that's going to have quite an effect on your character. I mean, like the reality of it is quite a tough industry. It's quite relentless. It's 24/7. It's lots of touring. As much as the touring is fantastic and amazing. There's definitely, you see that the people that have been in it for say a decade, they start to seek a kind of balance in their existence and their art and what they're doing. And while you wouldn't misrepresent those times that you've had and not say you've enjoyed them and the kind of the experiences that they've brought, but you kind of seek a different balance, I think, as time goes on. Like we said at the beginning, when you tour loads, you make less music. I'm sure there's going to be a load of music that comes out from this whole period of lockdown, and
next year's going to be crazy. Like people are just sitting on,
people are holding it back as well.
Exactly.
They're just like, no, I've written this amazing song and it's going to be like,
yeah.
And everyone's just going to have to get their release schedule sorted together. I think
exactly. People are like summer 21. Everyone's got their sights set on that, or spring, and that's quite exciting. I think I'm curious to hear, as a label owner, DJ, and producer, are you receiving a lot of demos? We do. Like, what's the music from where you sit? Are you getting a lot of records sent your way right now?
Yeah, no. There's been a lot come through. I mean, we work quite far ahead with the schedule on Street Tracks, but we use Send Music quite a lot, which is a great platform because people can literally upload 2 tracks. It comes to your email kind of slightly anonymously, so it's in that respect. I think the thing with demos, you can get a lot sometimes, and you're looking for originality and you're looking for authenticity, it feels like there's definitely a lot of creation going on because everyone stopped traveling so much.
It's true. And also, I don't know if you've been checking out on YouTube and Twitch, but a lot of big time producers are opening up full sessions, doing stuff live on stream, whether that's, I don't know, anyone from Disclosure, Boys Noise, Oliver, the list goes on. Chris Lake is doing them. Have you checked out any of those streams?
Yeah, I watched the Chris Lake one and the Disclosure ones actually. I just thought they were great. I mean, it's amazing that people are sharing their knowledge to people and just making it so accessible. I think there needs to be a bit more kind of tutoring with regards to the industry side and the realities of it, and just even sensible stuff like setting up a company or saving for your tax. I think like quite practical things,
right?
Things that you need to know to run a career. Like there's lots of stories about even like people like Lauryn Hill and Wesley Snipes.
Right.
They've gone bankrupt through not paying their taxes, and just how to avoid those sorts of scenarios, but also live a life where it's kind of a bit less stressful because you're probably going to be more creative as a result of doing that.
Yeah. Absolutely. There's a lot of technical knowledge That's one of the fun things about this weekly chat is, getting people that have seen all sides of the industry, like yourself, like an A-Track, or who I think you said you saw his interview, and people with different stories, because it's tough to know, what to do once you've got that fire demo or your first 3 tracks, and you have maybe a couple of would-be managers coming at you, maybe an agent, and you've got a bunch of different labels. One's offering you cash advance, or one's offering you production deal 360, and you're like, what do these things mean?
It's overwhelming. Yeah, totally. It takes a long time to kind of get your head around what the industry is. And I think with music as well, it's kind of not a set science. So the information now is definitely more widely available of what each facet is. But then you still, people still want to know what's an agent do, and they kind of know what an agent does. But then it's like, well, why does an artist get booked?
Right.
So even just kind of like talking about ticket work is kind of like is an interesting thing to kind of chat to someone that's coming through and just get them to understand. So I think you get a lot of artists that will come through and be like, I need an agent, and it's like, well, what's the agent going to do if there's no gigs, or there's no there's no demand there? It's like, you could be making really good music and you could have an ego that thinks it's like, oh, I should be getting booked right now, what the hell's going on? But the reality of the situation is you have to build stuff, and it takes time. I think the one thing I'd probably always say is patience. It's the one thing to learn from everything, is like, when it's working, you'll know it's working. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like you say, it's bewildering for young artists to come through and have a kind of a successful track, and then get suddenly bombarded with XYZ. Do you need an agent? You need a manager? You need a lawyer? It's
business manager, taxes, international taxes. My nightmares, man. What? I've just lost your train of thought. Oh, on the gig front, over in the U.S., we're starting to see more of these sort of distance drive-through shows. Is that a thing in the UK? Like these remote, like what's going on over there?
Yeah, there has been some parties. So socially distanced. So in the UK, we are allowed to keep in a group of 6. So it's the rule of 6. And it's changed in the last week, whereby they've, starting to kind of slightly lock down areas. But there has been parties. I've heard that there's been a legal party. So it's a bit of a mix. Some, like, the traditional promoter has been putting on, there was one in Maidstone last week, I think, with like Salado Eats Everything and Nick Franchuli.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
And that was like, groups of 6 on tables in a festival tent. So it's socially distanced.
And seated.
Yeah, seated, yeah. And I think you can kind of dance, well, I think you can kind of dance in
your chair,
in the bubble, and it's kind of cordoned off.
Okay.
And then there was a place called Gisborne Park, I think, and they were having some parties, like Patrick Topping played that one, and they had, boxes where people just danced and kept a distance. So it's been interesting. People have been creative, essentially. Mm-hmm. I think there's maybe been one drive-through one, but I think the idea of a British person going to a drive-through rave is like,
right.
I don't know, it's just not happening.
Right. Have you played any of those type of shows? These new shows?
We've not actually. We've kind of kept a distance, I suppose.
Yeah. Dr. Fauci would approve. I think a mutual friend of ours, at least, because you've released on Hot Boy Records, is that correct?
Yes, Brennan. Yeah.
Yeah. So Brennan's a homie out of Denver. As you must know, the kind of more or less
star. Yeah.
The mayor of Colorado.
Yeah, totally.
He's doing some really interesting things around.
I've seen actually.
Mm-hmm.
He's got his head around it, hasn't he?
He's combining art. They have the lot, a big parking lot beside the bar, or whatever bar standard I think it is, set up, and then you got your seated your standard sort of seating, and then I guess there's sort of an itinerary, like a schedule, where after your drinks and dinner, then you go and do the walkthrough of like this incredible local artist, some maybe 3D stuff, like almost like an art walk, and then you come back, and so there's a bit of a flow to the evening, which I think is
That's quite smart.
yeah, because it's not just sitting in the same place for 3-4 hours and legs falling asleep.
I love that city. I did see pictures and I was like, oh, I know the back of that. That venue, Vinyl. But yeah, he was so kind to us last time we stayed. He lent me a studio for like 2 days, and we stayed. I think it was around Christmas time.
Mm-hmm.
We stayed in Denver, Colorado, and nice part of the world. I'm really missing the States. I really had a great time in the States.
Right.
Every time that we came over, it was phenomenal. I suppose being a Brit, coming across and actually getting a bit under the layer a little bit more was quite interesting, especially to see the club culture. Some of the amazing kind of parties that go on in places like Pittsburgh to El Paso to Denver. I mean, Denver is definitely one that we've seen a dramatic change in makeup of the city.
Mm-hmm.
I think it almost became a bit of an LA outpost, I think, in some ways, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of artists, and then with Red Rocks, obviously, they were doing more and more, which is a gorgeous, gorgeous venue. And well, for me, Denver reminds me. So I'm from Vancouver, BC originally, so same mountain range, the Rockies, and people have all smoked a lot of weed and do mountain biking and snowboard, and it's just very similar. Type of vibe, right? That's excellent.
Beautiful as well.
Yeah. I'm actually gonna. I realized after living in LA for a few years how fortunate, more than I realized before. I think if you grew up in a place, you take it for granted, as as human nature. But it is. Lots of great musicians and talented producers up there as well. But it is interesting in the States. I think right now we're feeling that. It's an interesting time to be in the U.S. I'll just say that, and leave it there. But I wanted to chat with you just a little bit more. We've got Waze of Street Tracks on the call for anyone that's just joining us. Oh yeah, Dashy says that's a lot of synths. He can't quite see because I've got the close crop on you, but yeah, that's all the real hardware. Although you've got some of the Roland boutique stuff. Yeah, if you want to move your camera around, actually, let's get a little tour. The SH101, which I love. 909, 808. What's that one on the bottom there?
This one?
No, below it.
Oh, this is just the Novation.
Got it.
It's just like a MIDI controller. But 303. And then I've got a 707 just over here.
Oh my god!
I've been clearing out a little bit. But,
oh man! So do you?
I just moved, so literally, you can see I'm in like an attic essentially.
So the question in the chat is how you've got them all routed. I know you mentioned the patch bay. They're all just running through the one.
Yeah, so I've just got one patch bay and a Mio MIDI, and it took us 14 hours to get it all up and running. The SH101 still, we need to figure out a way to route that because it's CV, which is probably just going to be a Kenton box converter. But for now, everything else works, so I just use this as an audio.
So nothing is routing like MIDI through another. Each one has its own out.
Yes, yeah. So you can communicate directly.
Got it.
You realise Tom is phenomenally talented, and you do realise like how it's just so complex. You can you could spend hours doing it. It's maybe not one of my fortes of actually spending the time just to set everything up. It's just. It is. It took us pretty much a whole day just to do it between the two of us,
Right.
and he knows what he's doing.
So when you're writing, are you doing stuff more in the box then, and then like replacing whatever 707 samples with the real deal, or like on your records, is it a combination of outside the box? Like, how does that all work?
We started on Fruity Loops,
Right.
and
So
then
not.
and then yeah, literally, I think we crossed. I mean, I've used Ableton for years, and then early days was very much VST's Fruity Loops. I think around 20, I had my Juno. I mean, I've got Juno over here as well, which I think I bought that in 2010. And then I started buying the 8. I think I got the 808 in like 2013, 2014. So that became a whole new thing. But again, these things take time. One thing you start to do is interrupt your flow of what you're doing, and you challenge what you're doing, which is good and bad because you can stop writing. So right now, my process is I will write a bit of a mix now because I'm trying to get used to this whole new structure. So I've just moved studio, so I feel like it's a new thing.
Right.
But in the past, I mean, I'm a big advocate of Machine. I love Machine. I think it's a great product. I think it does so much, like the sequencing and the kind of just the capability. It's like having an MPC,
Right.
At your fingertips. That's super easy to load up and just, you can just click and you're going. Whereas having an MPC can be quite hard work, really. You listen to those old tracks, they're amazing, but they can be challenging at the best of times. I think I read something where MK was just talking about his old studio gear as well. We go back to MK, but he had Machine afterwards, and he was like, "This is just amazing. Why would you use the analog gear?" And this is someone that's used the analog gear. But then I definitely think there's something that you do get from the old stuff, which is the electricity and the currents, which is like, there's almost like a inconsistency, I think, with some of the old stuff.
Right.
Which you can hear, and it's cool for what it is, but like maybe you wouldn't use it on a pop record because it'd get lost.
Right.
Just is what it is. It's yeah, you can enjoy it in different scenarios. I think that's the key thing.
Yeah, I think knowing how to use, well, first off, is understanding how to use the tools that you have at your disposal, which is probably one of the most important steps in this music game, regardless of what you use. So I used to write with my 106 all the time. I used to even bring that when I was doing my live set, and I would bring that on the road, which was stressful times. But and now I'm like, okay, well, I kind of get I know how to get these sounds, whatever, with plugins pretty easily, and I, don't want to keep repairing it because the chips keep going out. So I'm like, all right, well, I mean, it can sit for a bit. I'm sure I'm not gonna get rid of it just yet, and I will take it out and play it, but it doesn't mean that I need to have a 106 on all of my records just because I love my 106. It can sit for a bit. But I think that's and so it goes, and that's just on the easier side of toys, I think. But as with any like software, I mean, there's on these chats, people are often asking, what's on your master chain? Not necessarily on these chats, but people are like, what do you use for this? What do you use for that? And I think Muramasa. There was a great Muramasa interview. I don't know if you saw it, where he basically used almost entirely in the box Ableton stuff, and which is like, I think he had a session with Flume or something, and he was like, "Where's all your session?" And he's like, "This is the session." It's like 25 channels, all Ableton stuff.
Yeah, no, I think whatever works. I mean, Ableton's amazing. You can do so much with it. It's just people are quite snobby towards it, to be honest. I think sometimes it's got. I mean, there used to be that thing of like, oh, it's got a sound, and you're like, no, it's just like an 8-track. Like, literally what you make it.
Yeah, I agree entirely. So we've got. I know that we didn't get to go over this because we managed to get on late. But at the end of these, we typically do this little speed round, which I'm gonna have to speedily think up because I forgot to do it today. But then we go through a couple of demos. So I don't want to. I know it's Friday night over there, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. But usually I just kind of go through some of these listener demos, listen to them on the stream, and then give a little bit of constructive feedback if you'd be up for some of that.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, sweet. Let me find before we get into that. Okay, speed round. Just first answers off the top of your head. Craziest gig memory.
Got to be Panorama Bar.
The first time you cut out there.
Probably like the fourth or fifth, but like basically when we settled into it and I wasn't as nervous.
What's the so that's in Berlin at Berghain for anyone that hasn't been there. What is that specific? Like, what's the capacity? It's not very big, right? The actual room. That room?
No, it's probably like 200 people.
Mm-hmm.
It's the house bar,
right?
And Berghain is the techno rave den,
of course.
But yeah, it's just phenomenal. It's I think the first time we played with Bicep,
Oof.
Matt and Andy, and they were really nervous.
Oh.
And I think they threw up afterwards because of the nerves. We had the same nerves, and I just remember feeling like after 4 hours we got through it. In an amazing, like it was just like, we just got to do this.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
It was like a sense of pride, and then I think by the second time, we were still really nervous. By the third time, you're a bit like, hey, we've done this once or twice. So we started to enjoy it more.
Yeah.
And then by like the fifth and sixth time, it was like, it felt amazing.
Right.
And yeah, the happiest of memories. It's just, it's kind of like a hark back to the 90s as regards to no phones.
Right.
Just no phones. Everyone walking in, connecting with a DJ, connecting with the community in there.
Mm-hmm.
The best.
Oh, I need to make it there. I had a similar nerve experience. One of the only times I don't usually get nervous DJing. Live shows definitely, but the first time I was in Tokyo on the way there, I think I hadn't slept in it was one of those jet lag things, and I had to do push-ups in the green room just to like try and settle like my heart rate, and then it went out there and it was fine. What's your favorite artist right now?
Ooh. Tough one. I've got to say, favorite artist right now, I'm going to flip it. The artist I've got a lot of appreciation for is Paul Wolford.
Oh yeah.
Because he's one of the loveliest people you'll ever meet in your life. And I used to warm up for him as well, actually, when I was like 20. But I just think he's done what he's done really well, and I love the fact he's got his special request alias and his Paul Wolford alias. Mm-hmm. And I just think that is artistry in itself, to have a few different disciplines.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say Paul.
Good answer. I think he's on the one of his projects is on that Dua Lipa remix record, I think.
Yes. No. Yeah. Totally. Right? I think he's special request. Yeah.
Special request, and then he just recently dropped a record with Diplo.
Yeah.
As Paul Wolford.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he does the kind of like more piano stuff with Paul Wolford. Special request is whatever the hell we want.
It's weird and club. I love that shit.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
I think that's really smart. I think a lot of people are looking at that, myself included, and going, "That's really cool."
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And he stuck to that. It's not overnight. Obviously, he's been around forever, but he's been developing both of those artist profiles for a while, which takes real commitment.
The last 5 years, I think. Yeah, definitely.
Easily. What is back to you. What is your favorite remix that you guys have ever done, or that you've done?
Tough one. I did one under my Nightcast alias for Alan Fitzpatrick of a guy called Leonardo, and that's got fond memories. It was just a bit. It reminded me of Berlin again, slightly. Just a bit tougher,
Right.
grimy.
Sounds like you might be thinking about needing to get back over there pretty soon.
Oh, yeah. When this all subsides, maybe.
Right. And last one, what's your favorite sample ever?
Probably Laura Palmer's theme from Twin Peaks.
Oh wow, okay.
In Moby Go. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I just love those three chords.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
No, it's actually four, isn't it? Yeah.
It's like two, is it not? It just repeats. Because if you heard the first two chords,
it changes at the end. You're right. Yeah, no, I think it is just two. Yeah.
In Moby's Go, I think it's just the two, which is
No, it does change. No, Laura's Palmer theme definitely changes, but Moby Go, I think it just took two.
If only there were a way to find this out on the fly without just guessing, but there's not.
That's amazing. I used to love Moby. I mean, I used to come for family holidays in America, and I picked up a Moby CD when I was like 16 in a CD shop, and I was obsessed. I mean, it was so varied. You kind of had a piano number, and then you had like a rave record, then you had a happy hardcore record, and it was brilliant. It was amazing music.
It's true, and he's been around for decades as well. Just going through the chat here. It's not a live set, Risk Mortem. It's an interview show, but we are going to go through some demos right now here with Waze. I'll send them to you just in the chat here because you won't hear my audio. So I'll send them in the Zoom chat, and then you can just open it on your side, and then we'll both mute our mics. I think it's very low tech, but it seems to work. That's the first one. Give me a second here, guys. Oh. There we are. Demos. Hey. All right. 3, 2, 1. Priscilla. right, so you have like a disco number, like chilled
Yo.
out lounge thing. Any thoughts, Waze? What up, views?
I liked it. I think the bass line could have come in sooner.
Earlier.
I think it came in like much later, but it's a good bass line. I think a lot of it is structure, um, but then depends what they want to achieve. I think the art is to the individual, I suppose. But it's a cool, it's well made.
Yeah, I like the track. I was a bit distracted by the vocals. I guess Priscilla, that's I don't know if that's you singing on it. I think the vocals a bit pitchy and needs to figure out like where it wants to be. The track underneath, once I was listening to that, I think you had a lot. I think it sounded pretty good melodically and nice bass line, nice chords. Um, at the end, there was like a vocal hook that sounded like I would almost maybe try. Oh, you pitched your friend down. Yeah, I would be curious to hear this without your friend. No offense. First, because I know that you can it's fine to like write around, but I think that like once you complete like your instrumental, there was a hook there. Like I would look at resampling and chopping it up because the writing is kind of whatever, and honestly the top line is pretty whatever. So that's just me, but that's because we're all friends here. But yeah, nice. Yeah, cool track. I'd be curious to hear like someone different on that, and then maybe, as Wei said, like maybe a bit of a tighter arrangement. But it depends on what you're going for. Cool. Up next, we got. Faraz, just let me know when you got to bounce here. I know it's late over there, and you want to play with your 707.
We'll do one more.
Yeah. Let me see. We'll load that one up. This one is I don't remember what this. I think this is a disclosure challenge. It's labeled B Howard challenge. So Dash, is that like a sample? Anyways, we'll just listen to it first, and then you can explain. All right, 3, 2, 1, go.
Can we take this to wanna be with you. I know you said you don't know how to love. I can show you. Let me ease your mind. Take our time. I can show you my
Cool. So that's, I guess that's from part of a drum groove that Howard from Disclosure shared, and then you built, and then Dash wrote the rest of the track around that. Yeah. What do you thoughts for us?
I like that. It was cool, pleasant.
Yeah, I like this tempo. Dash is usually sending in slower pop stuff. I think
Bass was good.
yeah, a lot of nice parts in that. I think the chords that you've got, the little chord stabs, you've got all coming on the downbeat, and it could be cool if they were syncopated and sort of fit like the groove on like the and rather than like the ones, like 1 3
Yeah.
1 where you're
Yeah,
like
yeah.
so just building, because you've got a really nice percussive groove going on there, and the bass as well. So I'd like to hear almost kind of, I'm thinking more like UK garagey type, and then with the vocal almost more like chop type stuff.
Yeah.
In that sounds good though.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I know it's getting late over in the UK there, so thanks so much for hanging out.
Lovely to chat to you, Pat.
And we'll be checking out your new project. It's called Ninth House as well?
Ninth House, yeah. Number 9 TH House.
Amazing. Yeah. Please send some promos, because who knows when, pop-up party, properly distanced pop-up party. We need some fire.
Yeah, I'll send you some bits over for sure. I'll send you the folder.
Amazing. Everyone go follow Waze. Is it Waze Music on Instagram as well?
Waze_music, yeah.
Waze_music, and check out all the fire remixes and records that they've made over there, as well as the label Street Tracks. All right, dude. I'm gonna keep trucking on these demos, and have a good night. See you
Lovely
soon.
to chat to you. Take care.
Later, man.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
All right, and then it's just me. Got a couple more demos here. All right. Is Landon around? The background? Yeah, I don't know what happened. I reset my computer, and the background went. Oh, do you mean the background on this one, or the desktop, like the island thing? I'm not sure which background you're talking about. Okay, we're gonna do the ones in the chat. Oh, there's a lag. I know. I know Corsarine's in here. Let's do that one from Caro.